There was no loud press release, no sensational headlines immediately afterward. Catherine O'Hara's passing was kept by her family within a rare pocket of silence, as if they needed time to breathe, to understand what had just happened before letting the outside world know. For several days, everything was handled so quietly that the public sensed only an unusual stillness surrounding a name long associated with laughter and effortless grace. Only when her husband spoke out did the curtain slowly begin to lift. He did not dwell on the loss, nor did he speak of his own grief. What he chose to share was the testament, a document Catherine had prepared long ago, before anyone imagined that day would come. And it was in that moment that the entire family could no longer hold back their tears. Not because of money, not because of assets. That testament did not read like a cold division of property, but rather like a final message written with absolute clarity of mind. Catherine did not want her departure to become a prolonged shock. She wanted everything to be orderly, transparent, and above all, to leave no confusion for those she left behind. According to her husband, from the very first lines, the family understood that Catherine had been thinking about this moment for a long time, not with fear, but with responsibility. She had prepared everything in silence, just as she had always lived, without spectacle, without explanation, yet deeply attentive to the emotions of others. And that was precisely why the testament, though only just revealed, struck straight at the hearts of those who loved her most. For many years, Catherine O'Hara appeared before the public in a familiar way, composed, witty, sharp in every glance. There were no obvious signs of decline, no complaints, and certainly no confessions coloured by tragedy. But behind that calm exterior was a secret known only to her family and a few very close confidants. Catherine had been living with a serious health condition for a long time. It was not the kind of illness that caused her to collapse suddenly, but rather one that quietly wore down her physical strength, forcing her to learn to listen to her body day by day. Sudden waves of exhaustion, longer recovery periods than most people. All of it was hidden behind absolute professionalism. Her reason for never going public was never denial or fear. She believed audiences came to her for the characters, for the stories and the laughter, not for sympathy. To her, illness was private, not part of a brand, and certainly not a tool to solicit compassion. And so she chose silence, continued working, continued showing up as if everything were completely fine. Only later did colleagues begin to notice the small adjustments that had gone unnoticed at the time. Shortened shooting schedules, brief but regular breaks, moments when Catherine quietly sat alone before stepping into a scene. No one heard her complain and no one saw her blame her health. She simply adapted, quietly, day after day. That is why, when the testament was revealed and her husband confirmed for the first time that Catherine had prepared everything far in advance, the family understood that her silence was not avoidance. It was her way of maintaining control until the very end, over her body, over the work she loved, and over the image she wanted to leave behind in people's memories. To the public, Catherine O'Hara never seemed to slow down. She continued to appear regularly, maintained her finely tuned rhythm of performance, and still made audiences laugh with nothing more than a glance or a seemingly simple line. But behind those roles was a quiet process of self-adjustment that no one noticed, or rather that no one was allowed to notice. In an industry that demands high energy and punishing schedules, Catherine understood her limits better than anyone. She began choosing roles more carefully, not because offers were scarce, but because she knew which roles allowed her to control her pace and which demanded more physical endurance than she could give. The selectiveness the press sometimes mentioned was in truth a subtle survival strategy. She limited extended promotional tours, declined schedules that required constant travel between cities. On set, Catherine requested rehearsals that were shorter but focused, scenes carefully prepared to avoid unnecessary repetition. Everything was calculated with care, not to reduce quality, but to preserve it at the highest level she could sustain. What is remarkable is that no colleague ever felt she was weak or asking for special treatment. Catherine never used her health as an excuse. She arrived on time, knew her lines perfectly, and maintained absolute professionalism. If she needed rest, She quietly stepped backstage. When she returned, she was still the Catherine O'Hara everyone knew. It was only after she was gone that many realized. Behind that extraordinary endurance was a silent struggle that had lasted for years. And through the testament, her family came to understand that those small adjustments were not only about sustaining her career, but about protecting her dignity, refusing to let illness define who she was or the legacy she would leave behind. If there was one place that quietly guided every decision Catherine O'Hara made, though never spoken of loudly, it was her family. Not the kind displayed before the public, but a private, close-knit world. The place where she learned to stand strong from an early age. Catherine grew up in Toronto in a large family, where discipline and self-reliance were not choices but givens. No one was encouraged to display emotions or seek attention. Her parents believed a person's value lay in fulfilling responsibilities, keeping promises, and respecting others' boundaries. These lessons were not taught through words, but through daily life. That environment shaped a Catherine O'Hara who always kept just enough distance from the outside world. She rarely spoke about her private life, never turned her family into a supporting act for her career, and certainly never used them as a shield against public pressure. To her, family was a place to return to, not something to share. When she started her own family, Catherine carried those values with her in full. Her married life was built on respect, quietness, and mutual understanding. Her husband and children did not live under the spotlight, and she never pushed them to step into the world she had chosen. In the testament, this was not expressed through flowery language, but through clear, precise arrangements, true to the way she lived. To Catherine, family was not a place to lean on, but a source of inner strength that allowed her to remain silent in the face of turbulence, strong enough to shoulder everything on her own, and calm enough to prepare for her departure without leaving chaos for those who remained. When Catherine O'Hara's husband first spoke about her testament, it was not a dramatic moment before the media, nor was it directly tied to her passing. It happened quietly, within the family, after a period when Catherine's health forced everyone to confront more serious questions about the future. What moved her loved ones most was not the document itself, but her calmness as she prepared everything. That testament barely emphasized money. Instead, it read like a letter of direction, where Catherine clearly stated what she wanted to hold on to and what she was ready to let go. She demanded absolute respect for her family's privacy, even afterward, and did not allow her name or image to be exploited for any commercial purpose or public curiosity. To Catherine, silence was as valuable as fame. One detail that made her children break down was the way Catherine wrote about them. There were no long instructions, only trust. She did not plan her children's lives, impose roles, or place expectations on them. She simply emphasized that each of them had the right to live at their own pace, without carrying the burden of their mother's legacy. To her, spiritual freedom mattered more than inheriting a famous name. The most distinctive wish in the testament was related to her work. Catherine wanted the public to remember her for her roles, her dedication, and her professionalism, not her private life, her illness, or behind-the-scenes stories. Her husband admitted that when he read those lines, the family understood Catherine had thought long and carefully, writing not out of fear, but out of responsibility. It was this calmness, this preparation, and the way she placed others before herself that made the testament feel less like a legal document and more like a loving farewell. No one cried because of loss, but because they realized how deeply Catherine O'Hara had loved her family, in silence, exactly as she had lived her entire life. Catherine O'Hara's testament was not written in panic, nor was it a reaction to sudden events. It took shape slowly, over many years, in moments of quiet reflection, about family, about work, and about how she wanted to be remembered, or not remembered in the future. When her husband read it in full to their children for the first time, the room fell into a heavy silence, so thick that no one dared to move. What brought everyone to tears was not numbers or the division of assets. Catherine barely spoke about money. She wrote about order, boundaries, and peace. She wanted everything to be clear so no one would have to carry additional pain when they were already exhausted. In every line, one could feel a woman determined not to leave any disorder behind. Catherine devoted many pages to family, but not in the voice of an over-anxious mother. She did not tell her children who they should become, nor did she ask them to follow her path. Instead, she emphasized their right to step out of her shadow and live lives unbound by fame or public expectation. "Do not carry your mother's name as a burden," was one line that made her husband pause for a long time as he read. Another passage that left the family unable to hold back tears was Catherine's insistence on privacy. She asked, in language that was firm yet deeply respectful, that her family's life never become a topic of public discussion. No interviews, no rushed memoirs, no private moments dissected out of curiosity. To Catherine, true love sometimes meant knowing when to remain silent. And then came the final section, shorter than all the rest, yet the heaviest. Catherine wrote that she did not want to be remembered for physical hardship or quiet sacrifices. She wanted people to think of her work, her kindness, and the moments when she made others feel safe amid chaos. That was the only legacy she cared about. When her husband closed the testament, no one in the family spoke. Not because they had nothing to say, but because everything had already been said. In those pages, Catherine O'Hara had not only arranged the future, she had given her family one last gift: clarity, calmness, and a love that did not need to be displayed. If you feel the quiet yet profound care in the way Catherine O'Hara prepared everything for her family, please hit like to remember a woman who lived fully without needing noise. Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring untold Hollywood stories where truth, emotion, and unspoken moments come to light. And leave a comment. Do you think Catherine O'Hara's greatest legacy lies in her roles, or in the way she quietly protected her family until the very end?